Has someone ever come up to you and asked, play me your best guitar solo using only one string? Yeah, me neither. But when that does happen, us guitarists want to be prepared, and I've got you covered. All right, what do you say we break down the solo piece by piece? Now, this is all on one string, the G string to be specific. So you don't even have to tune up your entire guitar for this lesson. As long as the G string is in tune, we're good to go. So this is in the key of G major, and I'm actually using the G major scale for pretty much this entire solo. So I'm going to show you how to play the G major scale across one string. Looks like this. Now, of course, I go further up the neck in the solo, but I'm still using the G major scale. It just kind of ventures into a new octave once it gets past the 12th fret. So let's start with the very first part of the solo. So it actually starts in the higher octave of the G major scale. We're starting on the 16th fret here. So I like to use my third finger for this part. So we play the 16th fret of the G string, and then we slide down, all right? And then once we reach up here to the 7th fret, use your first finger to catch that 7th fret, and then the third finger to catch the 9th fret. So we're going. Then we're going to move up to the 12th fret with our third finger, and then 11th fret with our second finger. Then first finger is going to do 9 and 7. And this part's important. The reason I use my fingers in this sort of configuration is because the next part here, we're going to play the 9th fret with our third finger. And then we're going to do this nice kind of exhaling sounding slide, or glissando, down to the 4th fret, right? So here's what we got so far. So when you do that little slide from the 9th fret to the 4th fret, just pick it once and just let your finger sustain that note all the way down. It's just a really nice effect. It's very vocal. And then from here, with our first finger, we're going to play the 2nd fret, and then our third finger plays the 4th fret, and then we're going to do another slide. We're going to slide up to the 7th fret from the 4th fret and back down to the 4th fret. So we're going. Again, really focusing on that sort of vocal effect. There's going to be a lot of little embellishments in this solo, you know, slides and vibrato and hammer-ons, pull-offs, that kind of thing. You know, so it's a perfect opportunity to practice those techniques with this. So we have 2nd fret on the G string, 4th fret, then slide up to 7, back down to 4, and then we're going to play the 2nd fret and then the open string. And that kind of segues us into the next part of the solo. So let's just real quick recap what we got so far. And then once we've reached that open, you know, G string, then we're going to be climbing up the scale, but with style. We're going to start with, once we play the open string, we're going to play 2 and 4, and then 2 open. So here's where it kind of gets like kind of lyrical. We're going, then we're going 4 and 5, 4 open. All right, so noticing a pattern, this is kind of how we're going to walk up the whole scale. So we're going. And then once we've done 4 and 5, and then 4 to open, we're going to be kind of walking up a little bit faster. We're going to pick it up a bit. And we're going to go 5 to 7, and then the open string, and then we're doing 7 to 9, then open string. So it's just, we're just kind of playing 2 notes and bouncing off to the open string. So we have so far. right, then we're gonna keep it up. We're gonna do the same thing, 9 to 11. And then we're gonna do 11 to 12. And then finally, we're gonna do the 14th fret and then open. So let's recap real quick on that sort of climb up the scale. So we have and then once we've reached that last, open G string, then we're gonna come back to the 14th fret. With our third finger, we're gonna do a whole step bend. So we're gonna bend from the pitch of this note to that pitch, which is a whole step. We're gonna go. So it's just a nice sort of climactic sort of thing. We're going. And then once we're doing that bend, we're gonna come back down and we're gonna do 12 and 14. And then we're gonna do that bend, that whole step bend from 14 again. So again, just to kind of keep it lyrical, we kind of want this solo to have sort of a theme, and then we're gonna do 12 to 14 again. And then we're gonna slide up to the 16th fret with our 13th, our 13th finger, our third finger. I hope you don't have 13 fingers, that'd be weird. So we have our third finger, right, sliding up to the 16th fret. So we have, then pinky will play the 17th fret. First finger plays the 14th fret. All right, so we have, and then we're gonna do similar idea, just further down the scale. We're gonna do 12 and 14. And then our pinky is gonna reach over to the 16th fret. And then we're gonna play the 12th fret on the G string. So don't worry, I'm gonna recap on all this. So when we're climbing up the scale, we have, just like that. So once we've gone through the kind of pretty lyrical part, we're gonna do this last little half step bend and release with our first finger on the 11th fret of the G string. All right. So when I'm doing a bend and release like this, I kind of like to move in a radial kind of motion. So it's like I'm creating this little radius instead of just going straight down. It's almost like a, like a little arc. All right. That way we can kind of, like, that's sort of the direction that we would take the hand so that we can manipulate the string, right? And then we land it with our first finger on the 9th fret of the G string. And here's where it gets fun. We're gonna go into a slightly challenging but super fun tapping lick. So when I'm holding that note on the 9th fret, I'm getting my picking hand ready to do some tapping. So if you've never tapped before, you wanna think of it just like doing a hammer-on pull-off, right? With your fretting hand, only you're incorporating your picking hand into it, right? So generally when I'm holding the pick, I like to use my middle finger to do the tapping. I see a lot of guitar players like to use their first finger. It's really about personal preference. I don't think there's really a wrong way to do it if you're just using either your index finger or your middle finger. Personally, what feels natural to me is the middle finger. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tap, remember we're all on the G string, right? So we're gonna tap on the 12th fret here. So what you wanna do, just to kind of test your tapping ability, you wanna make sure that without picking the note, you can create sound, right? And a note that sustains. So you wanna think of your tapping finger just like a little hammer, right? You're bringing it down like that, and you're gonna need that force. It doesn't need to be too hard, right? Just there's a certain sweet spot of energy, right, that you need to use, where you don't wanna try and send your finger through your fretboard, right? But at the same time, you don't wanna to be so light that you don't even register the sound, right? So you wanna hold it down there, right? And you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna need that force to kind of keep the notes sustaining, because we're not gonna be picking for this part. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tap on the 12th fret, and then we're gonna release to the open G string. Now, one thing that you can do with your fretting hand, for now anyways, is to kind of mute the B string, so that when you're doing the release, when you're kind of, like what I like to do, I like to sort of release it with like a downward sort of force. I see some people do upwards. I'm not really that used to it yet. I like to do the sort of downward pull off. Right, and so that way having my hand here is really useful because I can just mute that string. So I'm doing the, and with my second finger, I'm gonna tap on the 11th fret, and then we're going, and then we're tapping back on the 12th fret. So we're going, and we're gonna be repeating that little line there. We're going, and then it's gonna be that 12, open, 11, 12, open. And it's gonna be bouncing through that in a repeatedly, right? Like that. So, you know, the tapping leg does move, but for now, kind of get used to that motion, right? Because it essentially repeats. You just move this hand down, you know, to different frets. So we're going. So just do that a bunch of times. Just get used to the motion. Oop. It is kind of cool looking too, you know, but since you have those fingers really close together, you want to make sure that you're not trampling the other finger, right? So you really want to focus on the precision of landing the tips of those fingers, right, onto their corresponding frets. So we're going, oh. That's another thing, is to try and not have the flesh of your hand, especially in your tapping hand, you know, resting over the string, because it could mute it like I just totally accidentally did there. So we're going to go. All right, so we're going to do that a couple times. Right, and then we're going to move this down to the 9th fret. So we're going. And then we move it down to the 7th fret. So we're substituting where the timing of where we're landing with the 11th fret in the beginning. And then we just walk it down to 9. So we're doing 11 a couple times, right? Then 9, and then 7. It kind of happens just once for each. So one time we hammer on to 7, tap. One time hammer on to 7. I'm sorry, hammer on to 9 earlier, tap. Then one time hammer on to 7. And then once we do this last tap, right, when we're going, what we're going to do is we're going to do a final release of our tapping finger. We're going to do that sort of pull off, or you could say kind of push off, right? Kind of pushing off to trigger the string. Then we're going to sort of pick up in this sort of little legato run where the tapping finger left off. So we're going, we're tapping to the 9th fret here, or the 7th fret, sorry, and then pulling off to 5, and then sliding down to 4. So it's like this. Very melodic. And the whole tapping leg, just to recap. One more time. And if you want, you know, just to kind of help mute the rest of the strings, especially if you're, you know, I'm not a frequent tapper. I do enjoy it, you know, when I can. But one thing that I like to do is, like I said, trying to keep, you know, you don't want the flesh of either of your hands muting the strings, you know, especially the strings that you want to hear. But since we're only focusing on one string, we can afford to mute the other one. So what I like to do with this hand is the way I sort of rest it on my guitar, it kind of naturally mutes like the low E and like the A strings, right? All right, and what I try to do is to get used to the motion and to not push off so much that it could potentially trigger the lower strings. So kind of all that, you know, kind of working in my favor, it kind of works out. Oop, except for right there. And if you want to, you can actually play through the entire, I'm just kind of going off the rails here for a second, but you can play through the entire G major scale. This would be a great way to practice the G major scale, is to just tap on the 12th fret, right, the octave of G, and pull off to, you know, the lower octave of G and walk up the scale like. You know, it beats playing it just, you know, vanilla, I guess. But anyway, going back to the tapping leg, one more recap, right? We have. All right, and then that's the hard part. Once we've gotten past that, what we're gonna do is, once we're hanging on to that 4th fret on the G string there with our first finger, right? It's important when we do this that we slide down with our first finger. And then what we're going to do is do a hammer on and pull off from the 4th fret, hammering onto the 5th fret, pulling off to 4, and then to open. Like that. So after we go, so it's just weird holding it in this position. It's very unnatural. So I'm trying to do this right. Here we go. There we go. And then we're going to do a hammer on, pull off from 4 to 5 to open. And then we're going to do 5th fret to 7th fret here. And then we hold that for a little bit. So after we do that, pull off to the open string. We do 5, 7. We're almost done. Then we're going to do some natural harmonics, which are super cool. And especially when you're playing with overdrive, you know, they just sound awesome. Or if you also have like a whammy bar, which I do with this Bigsby here, I can show you a cool thing you can do with those harmonics. And I can even show you what you can do if you don't have a tremolo or a whammy bar on your guitar. But anyway, we're going to play these natural harmonics here, which are the 7th fret and the 5th fret. Now, when you're playing a natural harmonic, they're called natural harmonics because they occur naturally on the guitar, right? We're not having to manipulate the strings like with artificial harmonics in order to achieve them. They just naturally happen with the open string. Now, in order to hit that harmonic though, you know what, like if, for example, if I want to fret the 7th fret of the G string, I got to put my finger here, right? Between the 2 fret wires. But if I'm trying to get a harmonic, I actually have to gently rest my finger, like rest. Don't fret it, just literally rest it on top of there, but right on top of the actual fret wire upwards of like the fret we're playing it, right? So the upwards fret being here. And you pick it, and you can just like pick it and release, and the note will sustain. And that's how you get the natural harmonic there on the 7th fret. And then on the 5th fret, it's a little bit harder to get, right? It's not as harmonically rich as what you'll find on the 7th fret or even the 12th fret. They kind of get a little weaker as you go up, as the tension sort of changes. But in order, you do kind of the same thing, but with your first finger, we can use here. We want to get that right on top of the fret wire. So not like we're fretting the 5th fret, but right on top of the fret wire upwards of the fret. And then we hit it, and there we go. So we have. Now for this part, when that note is sustaining, if you have a whammy bar, since you don't have to use your fingers anymore, you can just kind of free your hand. You can give it a little wiggle. You know, if you have like a, like a Strat bridge or like a Floyd Rose even, you have more of a range. Bigsby's are a little more subtle. But if you don't have a tremolo, you can do this. Check it out. Oop. Let me get that harmonic right. Now what I'm doing here is something you might see guitarists do where they just kind of gently wiggle their guitars, but it actually, you can hear the bending of the pitch a little bit. What I'm doing is I'll hold the neck with my fretting hand and I'll kind of push against the body with my picking hand and kind of do this counter movement where it's like I can push, I'll like push in with the guitar and then I'll push in with the neck and then just kind of, so it's almost like we're literally just manipulating the wood. And we're doing this, like I said, this kind of counter motion. So it's like I'll either be pushing in with the body or pushing out, and then just doing the counter of that with my fretting hand. All right. So if I'm pushing, let's say I'm pushing this way, pushing out this way, I'll be pulling this way with my fretting hand. So, and it's very subtle. Don't do it too hard. It's not good for the guitar. But there's just kind of a sweet spot where you can just hear the wobble of the note, right? So give that a shot. It's fun. Doesn't matter if you're playing electric or acoustic. I do it on acoustic guitars all the time. It's just as long as you find that sort of sweet spot and you do kind of want to feel your guitar's tolerance for it, right? You don't want to manhandle it too much. Just do it just enough to where you can hear the movement of the pitch, and you got it. So now what I'll do to recap is I'm going to play through the entire solo with no backing. But But I want you to know that with the backing track, you can actually play this solo pretty much anywhere. It doesn't have to be right on the downbeat. You know, you can play it anywhere in the backing track and it'll work because it's using the G major scale, which in the chord progression using the backing track is pretty much anywhere, any note in that scale will sound good. So you can start and end the solo. You can even play it in different tempos if you want to. As long as the rhythm's right, pretty much can't go wrong playing the solo over that track. So here we go. Here's the one string solo with no backing. If at any point you need to revisit any part of this lesson, just rewind the video to those parts and rewatch them as many times as it takes till you get it down. You'll also find the entire tab for this solo along with the link to the backing track in the description box below. So you've just learned a killer solo using only one string. But as you know, you got 5 other good ones, and I want you to be able to rip solos on all of them. So I got a gift for you. It's a free guitar cheat sheet. This has helped thousands of guitar players learn how to instantly solo in any key and with every string. So be sure to click here to claim your copy or check the link in the description box. If you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and check out our other relevant lessons right over here. I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastery Method, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.